Joining us now by phone is MSNBC military analyst Colonel Jack Jacobs. Colonel Jack, your reaction to news tonight that the United States has performed limited strikes in Syria against the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Well, it's not surprising that Iran has done what it's done. It tries as much as possible to use proxies, but its fingerprints are on absolutely every attack on American and allied interests in the region. And so at some juncture, they would expect that the United States would strike. I mean, we have struck before in Syria and other places as a result of attacks on American interests. It depends on whether or not Iran wants to take it further. The likelihood is that they will not. They will continue to use proxies, make small-scale attacks. But as we heard, in the event that there's a death, as an American death, as a result of an attack by Iran or an Iran proxy, then we can expect an escalation. And we already have plans to attack specific targets among Iranian interests in order to prevent that sort of thing from happening again.
Colonel Jack, is there any way for this not to spiral out of control, considering everything that's happening in the region as we speak in terms of the Israel-Hamas war?
Well, everybody on the other side is, of course, using what's happening in Israel as an opportunity to push the envelope, as it were. But at the end of the day, everything is in the hands of Iran and the Arab nations in the region. We keep forgetting that the nations in the region, Egypt and others, are part of this, should be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And to the extent that they are off stage, that they do not participate in solving the problem, then things might escalate and probably will.
Colonel Jack, what might the reaction be in the Middle East, in the Arab and Muslim world, to news of this limited strike in Syria?
Well, it's not going to be good. I mean, of course, the Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iranian interests don't need any excuse to do things that are disadvantageous not only to our interests but to their own interests and interests of those in the area. And so, and it's also fragmented there. I mean, nobody is under the direct command of anybody in particular. And so as a result of that, we're liable to see fragmented interests taking advantage of the situation and wreaking havoc in a wide variety of places. That makes it extremely difficult for the United States because unless somebody's fingerprints are on an attack, it makes it difficult for us to execute what plans we have in order to prevent further attacks. We have plans, we have targets, but at the end of the day, unless we can specifically identify the origin of the attack, it's very, very tough for us to justify internally to attack someplace or somebody in particular. So these are very fraught times. There's a lot of volatility, and it's very easy for things to spiral out of control.
Mm-hmm. You know, Colonel Jack, how might, now that these strikes have taken place, and the Defense Secretary has specifically called out the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, how might we expect Iran to react to the United States action?
Well, typically they'll use proxies. They don't want to necessarily be directly involved. And so we're liable to see continued limited attacks from time to time. Of course, to use a cliche, the elephant in the room is our fleet in the Gulf, in the Persian Gulf, and also in the Eastern Mediterranean. One would expect that Iran would not necessarily use the Republican Guards to carry on even limited attacks on our naval assets in the region. But if cooler heads don't prevail, that's what's liable to happen. And if anything will permit this situation in the area to spiral out of control, it's a direct attack on American interests in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Colonel Jack, let me ask you a basic question, rudimentary question for those of us who are not in the military and just hearing about this limited strike on 2 facilities in eastern Syria by the United States in response to attacks on American personnel by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Where do these strikes originate? Are they originating from the, I think it's the USS Eisenhower strike group that was sent to the Persian Gulf, or maybe the American aircraft carriers that are in the Eastern Mediterranean? Or do we have bases on the ground in the Middle East where these limited strikes could be carried out from?
Well, the short answer is yes to all of that, but the most likely origin is are assets afloat because they're maneuverable. It's very easy to dial in targets that we want to attack, and we can follow up also. There's counter battery radar. We can tell whence attacks come, where they originate from, and where they've moved to, because we have good technological capability to conduct surveillance and produce finished intelligence, so we know exactly where they are. So the most likely origin are assets afloat in the fleet.